Hello, everybody! This is Half Slash and Captain 1 for the Corsace Round of 16 Map Pool Showcase. So, how you feeling about this one, Captain? I know you were working a lot on the behind-the-scenes stuff for this pool.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really great one, especially I think a lot of the slots that you would normally say are pretty standard and boring. I think we got some really great maps off of those this time.
Awesome. Yeah. I took a look at this pool a couple weeks ago, and there are definitely some bangers, and I don't know, let's just get right into it, yeah? Alright, so first of all, first one we have here is No Mod 1. This is going to be a Kawari beat map, Shiena Nishizawa song, so No Mod 1.
Yeah, this is definitely, I think, a bit of a classic. I think a lot of people will remember this song, particularly for at least I would remember it for the Cryo map that came out several years ago, and we're bringing it back right here.
Yeah, pretty much. Kind of, if you've been around the past couple years, you've seen Kawari, normally known for their DT1s, right? But this time they decided, all right, big star jumps, go. It's pretty much what we're seeing here. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Sitting at around 6.6, 6.7-ish star rating. Lots of comfortable jumps. Big aim. Would love to see that big aim. And yeah, No Mod 1 TM.
Right, and it's not. I think there's a couple streams, nothing major, but it's enough to keep it a little interesting. And in general, it's definitely on the upper end of being well mapped for a No Mod 1, I would say.
Yeah, I think there's probably like one 9-verse. We just kind of saw that, but it's completely has no spacing, so you won't drop much on it if your streaming isn't that good. So. But otherwise, kind of otherwise, yeah, it's just pretty straightforward aim. That's nothing too weird about the circle size either. From what I'm seeing, your standard 4 and on the 3.8 aimy shenanigans, 4.2 mini precision-esque stuff that sometimes we see. No, just straightforward CS4 jump map. There's some triangles and stuff, and yes, no mod 1.
Pretty much. I mean, I'm a big fan of this. The 4.2, I think, is just kind of a comfort thing, though, for some mappers, is various circle sizes.
Yeah, for sure. So, speaking of the singer, Shiena Nishizawa, I can't remember the last time I saw, like, a anime opening done by them. Like, I can't remember which was a popular one that, what was it, like, Brand New World? Like, this is how old I am. Like, I'm thinking Brand New World from that Asterisk War show, like, a couple years back. That's, like, the best I got, as far as recent OPs by this singer.
Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, and if you can go back even further, they had some, I think one of the opening or ending, I don't remember, for the Kankole anime. So that's how far back that goes, is because Kankole has not really been too relevant in a very long time.
Oh, yeah, Fubuki, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just kind of all forgot Kankole because it's just not. It doesn't have the same staying power as Toho in terms of Dojin franchises, and then it's like better ship game. Azure Lane came out, and then it's just like it was over for Kankole. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it's the issue of not going global in this day and age.
That's true, but yeah, really, it's just like if we think about like something like Azure Lane, right? They actually go global with like all the ships and stuff for different countries and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. But enough of the mobile game anime weeb zone crossoverness. Let's get on to some No Mod 2. This is also, speaking of Toho, this is a bit of a cult classic here. Dematori Strawberry Crisis, mapped by none other than LFJ, like one of the Dematori mappers, right up there with Leader, Happy 30, like, I don't know who else. Like, there were a bunch of people that just only no Golden Wolf. Golden Wolf. How could I forget Golden Wolf? Right.
Yes.
So that's like your 2014 like standard for Demetori mapping, right? Here he is bringing it back, 2022. Nothing's changed.
And I just want to let it sink in how like amazing of a sequence of words it is. It's just Jonathan LFJ, Demetori, Nomad 2. Like this man was just born to map Demetori.
Dude, I can just like when those words are just when those words come out of your mouth, man. I'm just imagining the description, man. Like it's like Demetori with stars between each letter. Like that's the classic right there. Well, here we are. Pretty straightforward in that sense. 190 BPM. This one's not exactly your marathon-length Demetori song, so that's actually why we could have it in a slot, right? But overall, pretty straightforward in that sense. LFJ kind of maps some of the more comfy streams. This one has a bit of spice to it, though. LFJ doing a little bit of pop-offs, as we'll see as we get towards the guitar solo. But the streams themselves are pretty straightforward, in my opinion, still.
Yeah, although he loves throwing in his doubles with the guitar, though. You got very ready for those, because they don't stop.
Yeah, that's for sure. This song's got a lot of that 3/4 like double sort of supporting rhythm. So that's kind of what makes this fun, yeah.
Absolutely. And this guy, the tournament organizers out there, get this guy mapping streams more because he's so good at it.
So true. Yeah. That wiggle's playable in a straight line, by the way. So, but anyways, yeah, it's otherwise pretty straightforward in that sense. Like streams get to probably 24 notes long, so not a big stamina test. Definitely about the flow aim.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple times if you're not super comfortable, it can start to wear on your stamina a bit, just because it's very, very dense. It doesn't really ever let up.
Pretty much. Also, if you for some reason you cannot play doubles no matter what, you will probably drop back on those. Some of these are the more simple variants of doubles, but nonetheless, that is something to watch out for. I don't know, they're intuitive enough, at least where they're placed.
Right, I mean, it's obviously they're not just doubles over nothing. You can clearly hear what they're going to, you just gotta be ready for them.
True. Doubles over nothing era, though. That was a banger.
Skystar moment.
Yeah.
But, it works sometimes. Yeah, this I think is where the real stamina starts to really kick in. This section does not let up.
Oh yeah. Easy stamina section. Oh yeah, one note. You may have seen this song in Speed Cup if you were watching that. This map existed before that map. I'm just saying. So.
And watch that slider tick. Nissan definitely did not break on it. Definitely.
No,
didn't.
that was an FC, bro. Come on.
Yep, clearly an FC.
It looked like an FC to me, so it was an FC, right? All right, so coming back for some of those shoe-in mappers for the slots, we have Nomad 3 mapped by none other than Petal, right? So if you've kept an eye out for alt maps in the past 3-4 years, or maybe even longer, you'll definitely have heard of Petal mapping some of the Yoasobi songs and various other alty sort of stuff, right? So no exception in this case. This one is a bit more snap aim oriented, due to a lot of the difficulty coming from, very short groupings, so like irregular cuts, highly spaced doubles, that sort of thing. Not very straining on like, flow aim, but it's spicy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely a lot of spice, and I was just so happy when I saw Petal coming in for this, because like he wasn't in a very initial pool like mapping team, but he came in a bit later, and I was just so happy that we had a slot for him, because this map is an absolute banger.
Yeah, I was really surprised with this one, right? So like, you could, this is like one of those stories of you can see a mapper improve over time, because it's like compare the Yoasobi map by Pedal from many years ago to this, and it's just like night and day difference, right? Just in terms of quality and everything. So
yeah, like definitely, especially in terms of just like the mapping perspective, this map is just so incredibly well done. Like all the patterns and the transitions between those patterns, it's just so incredibly well mapped.
yeah, a very nice treat. But also overall very consistent, both song-wise and you know, map-wise. So not much more there. What other picks are you excited for before, without saying too much about them, Captain?
Oh man, I think the Nomad 4 is definitely interesting, coming up real soon. The HR1 is definitely going to be a bit different than what people expect. And also, I think we've got some nice stuff in the DT and the 3-month pools, obviously. I mean, just so much of this pool is just really excellent people doing what they do best.
Yeah, so not too much crazy experimentation in this one, I'd say. In that sense, it'll be some relief to players of like, oh man, I can't wait to see what crazy, crazy thing we see this week. But it's all sort of like people at their best is kind of how I describe this pool.
I love this section right here.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, the DT pool in particular, it's got a lot of songs that I really like. So hopefully they're also as popular with everyone else.
This is clocking in a bit longer. It's longer than both the Nomad 1 and the Nomad 2, so definitely a lot of consistency here needed.
Classic alt in that sense, right? It's just like, I feel like with alt songs, it's like they're either 3.5 minutes or they're marathons, right? Most of the times, like if you are lucky, you can find something that's 2 or 3 minutes or something. But unless it's Vocaloid, Vocaloid's always 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's definitely the 4-minute sweet spot for alt maps. Just songs just seem to be a thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that is, but I don't know, man. People make their songs. But anyways, onto the Nomad 4, right? So this is something. I mean, the background speaks for itself, right? Do we even need to talk about this one?
This background is one of the best in the pool. It's so good.
All right, so this is a Big Sum Tom by mapped by Jezag, right? I've never heard of this artist. I don't know where he found this song. Apparently this background is the like cover art for this song. So
I think it's a 2DX song.
Okay, all right.
They pull out some weird stuff sometimes. There's a lot of memes.
Dude, I'm getting kind of hungry with this. Like now, this one's like throwing me back to like the kebab background that LMT used last year in one of his hidden maps.
That was great.
Yeah. All right, about the map itself, right? So this is a tech map. It focuses a lot on slidery stuff. Has a couple of those KYS doubles, as we love to call them, right? Like all just kind of like hidden throughout. But overall, mainly only towards the intro though. The later half especially focuses a lot on like slider aim sort of based stuff. Especially these fast repeats and these mega sliders like thrown in between all the like kick slider jumps.
And I think the way Deca described this is a Nomad 4 mapped by someone who plays the game. Jezag definitely spends a lot of time on his gameplay analysis to make sure things really play the way he wants them to.
Yeah, it certainly shows, right? It's just like these sliders look like they are actually meant to be played, unlike certain famous sliders. But yes.
Oh, funny. It just looks like a salt shaker or something at the end.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's like there's like I have given up on trying to comprehend the meaning behind certain sliders, like especially in these types of maps. So. But anyways, No Mod 5, yeah. So this one is pretty much what you would expect from a No Mod 5. It's mapped by Corrupt, Clockwork's Tracer song, right? Like this is some Toho metal, and it's I don't know, song's really good. Streams are 235 BPM. It's kind of an evolution of the past round, right? Roughly about the same amount of aim. Just much more dense in terms of streams. So
Yeah, I think some people will remember Corrupt from the Corsace closed. He did a No Mod 5 there as well, and after he did a great job there, so we just pulled him right into Open as well. So he felt like he was fine to do the same thing, so we let him do the same thing basically, just a little bit easier.
Born to No Mod 5. Yeah, I don't know. So it's just like I think this guy's just like a born metal mapper, right? And it's just like metal mappers. This is rite of passage, right? Like you got to do these. Like when you're learning the map, this is like what you start. I think for metal, because a lot of the songs are just so fast, right? There's metal in like lower BPM genres. There's like the very technical types of metal that are a lot harder to map, right? But those are typically later stage things, like once you get to like LMT status or Mazarin or whatever, and this is like you've just been at this metal mapping thing for a couple of years. But this is where the humble beginnings are, I'd say.
Right, he's definitely a man after Mazarin's own heart.
Yeah.
Yep. I think this was probably recommended by him, this song.
I believe it. I believe it. Even if it's still a bit weird though, only just because it's like Toho. It's like I can't see Mazarin mapping the Toho metal song for some reason, unless it's custom. But yes. Yeah, I think that was the longest stream there though. It gets up to about 32 notes. Pretty low on spacing, but if you're double tapping in round of 16, it's just you're probably gonna lose because this is not exactly the range of where No Mod 5 caps a lot of people, especially at 235 BPM, right? So it's like once you start getting 240, 245, but overall pretty stamina heavy No Mod 5 this round, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, now we have the No Mod 6, and this is kind of establishing a bit of a trend this year. No Mod 6 is switching it up from round to round, right? So not exactly the same thing each round, but yep, we have Heartache Debug mapped by Errol.
This map has been through an absolute journey. This was originally mapped for a round of 32 No Mod 6, but it was extremely too hard at first. So we had to do a lot of work on this to get it to where the patterns are a lot more digestible and learnable. Shout out to K-Kip who gave us a lot of help with that as well. And I think now after moving it up, it's definitely in a much better spot, and the reading players have pretty much confirmed that this is a very learnable map. You just have to, give it a few playthroughs first.
Yeah, so this has a lot of parallels with the round of 32, round of 64 No Mod 6 last year. So it's low AR, so higher density, and it's pretty much focused on overlap reading. Pretty much the same thing here.
Yeah, you definitely have to make sure you know what's going on here. These patterns, these are not all just like consecutive streams here. This is broken up a little bit.
Yeah, I will say first half is a lot more. I'd say it's more forgiving in terms of combo, right? Where it's more act cheesable, but I'd say that if you drop a lot of act, you'll probably you'll be at a huge disadvantage because this later half of the map really picks up in terms of stuff that can make you break, right? You're just seeing this with like all these like sliders and like really hard to hit jumps between all this reading. So
right, yeah, and as people are noticing, the rhythm in this map is otherwise very, very consistent. There's no random changes in how like different sections are mapped in terms of the rhythm and patterning. It's just you're just learning those initial patterns.
pretty much. Also, I always love that space triple fun thrown in throughout, right?
Absolutely, and a big shout out to Toybot. You know, the mapper guy is apparently also a really excellent reading guy. Just what happens when you play hidden only for like 3 years, I guess.
Hidden only opens up your third eye. I haven't actually confirmed this in the physical sense, but I'm pretty sure Uberfaz has a third eye. Yeah, I won't. Let's not dwell on that. Hidden one. Speaking of hidden players, yeah. So hidden one is standard in one sense, and then not so much in the others, right? So this is Pass Out mapped by Fairy. Fairy is normally known for mapping a bunch of like tech stuff, or I guess IL stuff as well, right? So they had a No Mod 5 in OWC last year, something like that. But yeah, this is kind of what you would expect, right? It's like lots of circles thrown in questionable positions, causing some weirder angles, right? And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And it's definitely a non-standard song choice. People are going to, there's definitely an audience for this. This is, I think, what it would characterize as UK hip-hop, UK rap, something along those lines.
Man, normally it's the Russians that are coming up with these like crazy like bootleg rap mixes, but I guess this is the UK one.
Yeah, don't worry, that's next week. Spoilers.
Oh shit. Oh shit. Yeah, meme rap. I like to call it meme rap. It's probably actual music to some people, but to me it's meme rap. It's always fun for some of these like jumpier maps, especially, right? Like a ton of these things have populated the Grave and Love sections or whatever for many years in different languages, right? I still remember like the Polish ones that were really popular in like 2015 or something.
Right.
They'd get played like on Rafis streams or whatever. So it just has the same energy.
Definitely, yeah. It's we got to bring it into the tournament scene eventually. This is definitely an audience for it.
Yeah. Though I don't know when Opacha is gonna make it into a tournament pool, especially as a custom. Like that would be something.
Yeah, quite something. I can't even say I know what you're talking about there. that must be something I missed.
Okay. I'll catch you up after the stream. Opacha is a cult classic among tournament players in the 4-digit scene in 2016, right? So
right.
This is how it's like the real grandpa stuff, right?
It's definitely getting up in length in this one as well. Once again, a bit longer than the No Mod 1, clocking at almost 4 minutes, so there's a lot of consistency needed on this, especially on your just hidden weird patterns.
Yeah, 182 BPM though is pretty comfortable. A lot of these hidden ones tend to trend much higher in BPM these days, like 210, 220. So this one has basically no single tap strain, so very approachable in that sense. Also, density is quite low, right? AR 9.3 at 182 BPM is probably one of the most comfortable AR combinations you can get. Yeah, nothing too crazy. Just focus on hitting the wonky angles.
wish the song sounded like this ending the whole time through. It'd be really great.
Yeah, this is more my jam too. When it actually turns into like a DNB sort of thing instead of like, you know, meme rap.
Yeah, and just watch out for a couple of the snaps, especially when he's following vocal. They get a little weird.
Yep. So speaking of snapping fun, not really, but we have Hidden 2 coming up here. Low AR, mapped by Ice Cult, right? Brian Storm, not to be confused with Brainstorm, right? I definitely read this as Brainstorm a couple times. So.
Absolutely.
Look, Arctic Monkeys, they know what they're doing. They know that they are making these they're making these to meme, right? So.
Right, but otherwise, this is a very, very Ice Cult map. It's, you know, a bit of a flow aim, low AR hidden because it's actually not AR8 this time.
Yeah, so AR 8.5 mainly to make the density a bit more manageable. These types of picks, especially when they get to this BPM, tend to be overwhelming on the density, right? So round of 16, can't throw too much crazy stuff at you guys yet. So if you can read low AR hidden streams, then you should be able to do this.
Yeah, this definitely gets it to be a lot more approachable, I would say, when it's 8.5 instead of purely 8. And do not worry that we obviously had the Nomad 6 as a very heavy reading pick, and there will be another slightly more reading focused picks later on in the pool as well.
Yeah, also, despite the difficulty settings, no, this was not originally a Fremont pick. I will say that. No, he just mapped it like this.
Yeah, and it definitely won't encroach on, you know, the Fremont 3 CS5 AR8. It's a very different kind of map.
It definitely won't. It definitely won't. I just looked at that. Yeah, this one does have a bit of finger control element to it, but 165, I don't think it's going to really be gapping anyone, right? Like, you can play an alt map, you should be able to handle this finger control just fine.
Some funny sliders here.
The Ice Cult special, right? Like, can you really get an Ice Cult map without him doing some funny sliders? Come on.
Exactly. It's just, you know, like I said, it's just a very, very Ice Cult map. He's just doing what he's really, really good at doing.
True. Though the only way we could get it better is if we got him like Nekomata Master. That's his like those are his roots right there, Nekomata Master.
Absolutely. I think this song came from like a conversation he had with LMT or something. I remember that happening.
Now that's an Ice Cult thing to happen. Right? Now that's a really Ice Cult thing to happen. Especially if like, you know, a couple bits of it were in German too, right? Like that's how you know, right? So, but anyways, memes aside here, onto the Hidden 3, right? So you may be looking at this pool and be like, where's the gimmick flow aim? Where, well, here's the gimmick flow aim, right? So it's like, no, Hidden 2, a lot more straightforward on the flow aim, right? Because low AR. This one is not, right? So Hate Killer mapped by Spartan.
Alright, these Spartans finally got him off of purely the Nomad 3 ult, but as evidenced by the Fremont 1 last week, and now he's got a Hidden 3, which is... We kind of went for like this sort of snappy feeling. Like we referenced a lot of like the M2U maps that people like to do. Just this sort of very overlap heavy, very snap heavy sort of style.
Yeah, this is, I guess, what happens when you let an ape out of its cage for a bit. You get this, like, you get this, like, crazy setting, you know, like, gimmicky sort of, you know, space triple map. Because that's more or less what this is, right? focuses a lot on the weirdness with space triples. Has a lot of like triangle ones, you know, regular straight lines, some stuff in between with like some of the slightly longer bursts at 5, right? AR9 base, so you will actually have to do a little bit of extra density here. But other than that, nothing too crazy.
Though it is worth mentioning that it also has perfect stack 1-4. Definitely, they're very, I think, very easy to read if you're a hidden player, but it's definitely something to watch out for, that you can't just purely rely on the stack leniency here.
Yeah, probably give this a play or two, right? Less sight readable than the hidden 2, I will say that. Yeah, also pretty short pick as well, so there's also that.
And I think it's coming up on a bit of a spike here at the end.
Anime mapper moments right there, like.
Yeah, there's a lot of space triples right at the end there, so don't lose your cool right at the end there.
You just gave everyone the Hippo Cup mantra right there. Just don't break.
Right? Don't lose your cool, more importantly.
True. All right, so that's enough of the hidden stuff. Let's get on to some hard rock with Hard Rock 1. So this is one of those spicy picks you mentioned earlier.
Right, yeah, I think this is... Honestly, this is very close to being a hidden 1 in the hard rock pool. It's a little more... I think a little more standard than the last one, than the actual hidden 1 in this pool. That hidden 1 had a lot of very, very awkward angles. This is a little bit more comfortable, but it's still definitely, I would say, it has some spicy streams. It has a lot of wide angles.
Yeah, so it's like, if I have to think of like the progression for like, I guess it's like, maybe call it the like jump pattern iceberg, right? It's like you go from like just like pure anime to like 2014 anime to Calibe to Russian to like, I don't know, and then it's just like beyond that, and it's like, well, you're in no man's land, right? So this is definitely more on the Calibe side of things, where it's like you have a couple patterns that are thrown in here, but they're only slightly awkward. You just have to pay a little more attention than, you know, if you're farming PP, right? So it's kind of what you got going on here.
Yeah, and there's definitely a couple streams to watch out for as well. There's these streams that have these, like, it's almost like an anti-jump within the stream that can trip you up if you're really not ready for it.
Oh yeah, nice and fun. Yeah, this one differs a bit, I'd say, from the hidden 1, in the sense of the hidden 1, you basically cannot drop focus because chains of circles are so long. This one, it's like you can hit some harder patterns, you get a little bit of rest between easier patterns. So it's just a different sort of strain curve for jumps.
Right.
I mean, am I supposed to say something like, "Oh no, never mind. This is totally just like your typical anime jump map, right?" No, but that might come off offensive in some senses, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, but I think a lot of our HR1s in general just are not anime this year. We tried to avoid doing both Nomad 1 and HR1 as these super generic picks as well. So there's a lot of variance within the HR pool specifically.
Yeah, pretty nice in that sense, right? So it's like you get your, like, you know, pure anime stuff with Nomad 1, and then it's like you get your slightly off anime thing in Hard Rock 1, right? Works out.
Yeah, and sometimes you wish you would, you know, swap it up with even more. You do it either way. You just have something really weird in Nomad 1, but it is how it is sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think anytime people have kind of tried that in the past 2 years, they have gotten, like, nearly bludgeoned, right? like dragged out, lynched. Nothing fun.
No fun allowed.
Yeah, that's basically what's going on with the. That's the no mod though. But we're on Hard Rock, so there is fun allowed, right? Like, speaking of fun, you said there's be no anime, but this is where the anime is. Hard Rock 2, we have Knock on the Core by Vertizen. I think that's how you say that.
Something like that, Artisan, yeah.
Artisan, yeah. That sounds better to me too. Yeah, so didn't exactly have pure anime Hard Rock 1, so you get pure anime Hard Rock 2, right? We've been seeing a couple more of these jumpy Hard Rock 2s coming up in the past couple years as well, right? Corsace Close, we had one by Fiery on a Rise Against song, right? Same sort of energy, I'd say.
Right, yeah, this is definitely, I think this is basically almost an HR consistency pick as just CS5, so I think the precision test is obviously still very much there because it's so aim focused.
Yeah, reminds me a bit last year of one of the maps Iljaz did actually, so definitely
Yes.
definitely been around in that sense.
Yeah, I believe that was more or less our, initial idea for that is, okay, yeah, that Iljaz map was pretty good, so let's go for something like that here.
Gaming. Yeah, I always thought some people that some of the Hard Rock players I've known over the years, what they would do is if they wanted to actually get into Hard Rock, they'd pretty much start with just CS editing their favorite maps, and just tossing Hard Rock on them. So it's in some senses this will be a nice sort of callback to them, because it's oh yeah, it's when I was doing precision, this is what I did, blah blah blah. But obviously the other way is you actually just go play the maps that are more typical with CS5, right? Like the Cloyd stuff, where you just get all these funny streams going on at CS5. But this is the other side of the coin, I'd say.
Right, yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good idea. I should probably go do that.
Learning to play the game on a map will showcase.
Right? I mean, you can learn something new. It's not like I've been playing the game for almost 12 years already.
True. It's okay, you can chalk it up to, Mapper Cave for many years. It's fine.
Yeah, it gets a little dark sometimes,
I believe it. Yeah, though, it's when I think about other CS5 stuff, though, it's I've been searching for CS5 stuff recently, and it's all these you also get just the Chinese maps in that sense, right? That are 7 stars, and it's just oh. Not exactly friendly for Hard Rock. Not at all.
Yeah, it gets a little out of your range sometimes unless you're really already established yourself as a very good Hard Rock player.
Yeah, it's you gotta be reed cut or something for that, man. I don't know. But it's if I'm gonna go on that topic, it's there was a map I saw of CS 4.5, and it's Reedcat was #1, but he didn't have Hard Rock on it, and I'm probably a good idea.
Yeah, that seems very telling.
Yeah. All right. Well, we love anime. But anyways, we've had our anime fill, right? So it's with past 2 J-pop, J-rocky type things. Let's get on to the Hard Rock 3 here. Definitely not anime, and definitely not a song that we've had mapped in Corsace before. Hyper Fiber World Festival non-BMS version, mapped by Loki Doki.
Right, so there was something Hyper Fiber mapped by Ice Cult, I believe it was for OWC, and that was kind of our idea here is, well, why don't, we can probably get something like this in our pools as well. And it actually did start out as the Hidden 3, in place of that Spartan map, but then just due to how the maps worked out, it actually became better to swap them and have this be the HR3.
Oh, I love it when stuff like that happens. Yeah, so actually, this map, the corresponding Ice Cult map, right, which was actually initially mapped by Shern, was Hyperfiber World Spectrum, right, and that was actually a custom for Corsace 2020, and then later used in OWC. So,
right.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice little callback to that, right? Similar sort of song, same artist, but it's just like one of those funny references, I'd like to say. But very similar sense, right? It's like this has a lot of the funky 1/4. It has some of the 1/3 sections where you just have like those ham like doubles and such. But other than that, nothing too crazy, I'd say. It's actually definitely on the tame side as far as what could be in Hard Rock 3. Let me put it that way.
Definitely. And I think for 1-3 may catch out some people, or we definitely did some work on it to make sure that it was that it flowed well with the rest of the map, just so it's not too abrupt.
Yeah, but overall should be a nice challenge for those Hard Rock players.
I believe this sits at CS 3.8 base, so a little bit bigger circles. Not like to the point of being like a natural big circle pick in Hard Rock. It's just to ease up a little bit on the comfort.
Dude, I don't know. CS 3.8 has really been taking off in the past couple years. It totally has nothing to do with tournaments.
Absolutely nothing at all.
Nothing at all. It's always funny how that stuff swings, right? It's just like when decimal settings came out, it was like everyone was like doing like 4.5 had its like very minor heyday, and then it's like people were just like, nah, 4.2 is the way, and so you started seeing a lot more 4.2, 4.3, but not really in the other direction until recently. So, guess maps weren't hard enough, yeah. Anyways, on to the double time, right? So, I know you guys are wondering, it's like, where's the Western? Where is the Western, like, rock of this pool? It definitely was not the hidden one, but DT1, your boy has your back here. It is Stained Glass Eyes and Colorful Tears, mapped by Alden.
And this map was actually just very recently remapped. Like, he just decided, we threw a couple changes at him, he was like, nah, I'll just make the whole map again instead.
Oh, yeah, gotta love that. Yeah, so 234 BPM for a DT1 in this sort of like difficulty range, kind of uncommon, right? Really lends itself to a lot more of a raw aim focus than you'd expect from a DT1. Has a bit of these like tapping heavy parts, but it's basically just triples, right? Triples and some singles, and then you just like you should be good after that, right? Nothing too crazy. So, but yeah, here's your Western jump map.
Okay. And yeah, this is definitely very low BPM at 234, so it almost feels like a farm map in terms of just very comfortable jumps at a lower BPM.
Look, your boy Alden here, he loves mapping what he plays, bro. He loves it. Makes me curious why he ends up on No Mod 5 so often, huh? Wow.
Real. Just mechanics. Just gotta go all in on the mechanics.
You know, it's just like, it's funny how you just look at the like people that normally map No Mod 1, and then you find it's like they either like don't want to map anime, and it's like then they get put on No Mod 5, and it's just like, oh. It's okay. You could do this too, right? So this is like throwing it back to like 2016 Fishy, right? When we saw a lot of like Pierce the Veil maps at that point.
Yeah, I definitely remember that era. It was some good maps. It's definitely sits along right there with them. It's really great, very well done by him.
Yep.
Quite short though.
Yeah, that's for sure. Also, we didn't mention AR, but it didn't really scale from round of 32. It's also 8.6 pre-DT, so nothing too crazy yet. You're not getting hard capped quite yet on AR. But anyways, so I said there would be bangers, right? Totally wasn't talking about that DT1. No, not at all. No. DT2 is much more in my wheelhouse, right? So we have none other than Kids Festival, Innocent Treasures, mapped by YGO Kid 8, right? So I don't know. We've talked about if you guys are watching Corsace Closed, we've talked about this mapper kind of making his comeback into mapping, joining the custom scene, and coming out with the bangers, right? So YGO is a very old time mapper. Let's put it that way, right? He was ranking stuff in 2009, 2010.
Yeah, it's definitely before my time, and definitely good to see him coming back and adapting very well to the current mapping meta and the style and such. This is absolutely just a crushing stamina map, though.
Oh yeah. So we've before it was like with some of these like DT2s, we've seen they come in different flavors. In the sense of some of them are kind of like they just never let up, right? And that's how they get their difficulty, just like continuous strain for whole sections. Some of them are, all about like a couple long streams here and there. This one's a lot closer on this continuous strain sort of things. Not to say that there's no breaks, because this definitely has some calmer parts throughout the middle, and even like in the verses, it's just not as intense, but it's definitely a lot higher on the continuous strain for when the choruses hit, and they don't let up, pretty much.
And we even brought down the spacing a little bit just to make sure that it really focuses on that tapping aspect of the streams here.
Pretty much. It's almost like just like one long continuous chain of just bursts and triples and such, but not quite. There are very slight breaks for you to catch your breath.
Yeah, so it essentially it swaps the Nomad 5 and the DT2 from last week, where the DT2 last week was all about the long streams, and the Nomad 5 was about the bursts. And here, the Nomad 5 is all about the long streams, and this one's about the bursts.
Yeah, pretty much. Should still be manageable, but definitely on the harder side, I'd say, for those not adjusted with DT2 in general.
Well, you've got to give the speed players their time in the limelight. The aim players have had enough.
Hey, that's right. I could say that with this pool for sure. Also, did I mention this song's a banger? It is a banger.
I think this guy likes Zune. I don't know.
Maybe a little biased.
You had to finish the Pecco before the spinner ended.
True, dude. Alright, well, so that's our DT2. Moving on to the DT3, right? So, we're getting some more of these, like, classic styled both songs and map bangers by Dada here, coming out with Magic World. I don't know which anime this is from, but I know I've heard it for a long time, right? So
this looks like Index.
I see Index in the background, but I can't remember whether... This must have been like an ending or something. Has to have been.
Yeah, I don't think I ever actually watched the Index half. I only watched Railgun.
Okay, no, I watched Index and I do not remember this song, so it hasn't been an ending because I always skip the ending.
And there's some good songs in the endings,
I know, like I found them through Osu. I'm like, damn, I should stop skipping the endings, right? Alright, anyways, so about the actual song itself, right? We have a 2 BPM increase from last week, right? So 257 BPM. This one is all about, I'd say this one's like a hybrid aim and just kind of burst strain sort of pick, right? So it's like a common. Sometimes you'll see in like a common critique of some DT1s that just lean too much on the bursts is that they play more like speed maps, right? This has that sort of energy, except it's on AR8, so you're not actually AR capping people, and you just have like bursts here and there thrown between these jumps, right? It's a bit of a different flavor of speed pick, but it works out in my opinion. So
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of like 2011 Insane AR8s, where there wasn't really mapped to be a DT map because people weren't really DTing stuff like that back then. So it's not just pure speed, it's not pure aim, it's a little bit of both.
yeah, pretty much. This is like this sort of map, right? It's just like if you had AR9 on this and the jumps were a bit bigger, and this would be like what the top what the top DT players are really playing, right? But since it's AR8, right, basically AR8, it's 8.3, it's nice and comfortable. Yeah, I'm kind of curious, like which anime was this from, man? Or like which like season of Index? Because I just don't remember this song.
We'll have to ask him later. Maybe he can just tell us right out.
Yeah,
Not
the
even
song
in the
is too
chat?
short. The song
Who
is
knows?
too short. Okay, so moving on to DT4, right? We have a little bit of a fun thing here for you guys because we always love fun in DT4s, right? So, actually, maybe even this one might actually be a more straightforward pick, but we'll see. So, DT4, Deer Tracks by Waifworth. This is a yeah, this map I'd say it's pretty much a pure flowing map. Not really much else to say in that sense, right? Just pure flow aim, light precision elements, and it's kind of what's going on here.
This map is a vibe, is what it is. The song is a vibe, and you just chill and you hit flow aim, and it's a great time.
True, dude. Honestly, this type of song has AR7 energy. Like I'm feeling it, but it's fine. Most people would probably prefer the 8.2 that it's at, since AR7 is scary.
We bumped it all the way up to 8.5, didn't we?
Oh, true. My sheet here is wrong, but yes, the graphics are correct. It is AR10, so after DT.
Yeah, I think that was a recent change once we moved it up here, because we had a lot of fun with this DT4 and the prior DT4 figuring out which one went where.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Always fun.
So I think they might feel a bit close, but I think in terms of the stylistic and the pool overall balance, this one definitely works here very well.
Yeah, so you're getting your Usada Pekora rep right there in the middle of that break. Gotta love those VTuber inserts into otherwise completely unrelated songs. But yes, totally not a paid advertisement, by the way. Pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure that's just his undying love.
Yeah, we would never accept bribes from VTubers. Just saying.
You sure?
Okay, maybe you would, but yeah,
This map really is so fun though.
Yeah, it just kind of goes. It goes, and you just kind of jam and vibe to it. Not much energy other than that, right? Just go. Okay, well, that's enough for our double times. Now we have a bit of a free mod, right? So, free mod 1, we have we actually have a featured artist song here. Be Fortunate. And this one is mapped by Vita2. Some of you may remember him from last year, as he was he had a map, I think, in Hidden 2 round of either 32 or 16, can't remember.
Yeah, this is definitely, I think, what Vita really likes doing is this kind of electronic-focused stream maps. Is really great at them, and this one's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of really interesting stream shapes to really keep you on your toes.
Yeah, I'd say also like pretty similar to the map from last year, right? It's also on the bigger circle size, right? 3.6, right? Big circles, stream fun, always good to have. Yeah, I don't know. This reminds me a lot like if I had to give like a parallel to a recent one, it's actually similar rhythmically and almost sort of structurally to the one that we saw in Corsace Close earlier this year. But that's just Kino Isuku, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely a very signature style in the artist here. Like a lot of this, sort of slightly 8-bit vibe going on.
This happy hardcore stuff is insane. That's all I'm saying.
It's great music.
True. But yeah, definitely something that favors flow aim players. Yeah, flow aim players. But
Just like you said, keeping that big circle just to keep it a little balanced here. So keeping the aim a little bit easier on the hard rock side.
yeah, other than that, relatively straightforward pick. Just maybe watch out for a couple of those turns here and there, and don't break on the slider streams, and you're probably fine. All right, so with Fremont 2, we have a interesting addition. We have Ubiquitous Corsace Edit, actually. So by actually, sorry, no, the song is wrong. That's the diff name. Sorry. Title is Nami Oto Yoshi by Niwashi and Taiyo, mapped by Mezelius, who kind of came onto the scene somewhat recently, right? But you would know Mezelius if you are a fan of the rhythm maps in general.
Yeah, he's finally got another contender to join the notorious trio of rhythm mappers that we had before, and like Devious Panda, Il Jazz, Down, that sort of group. We've got another really great mapper to take up that sort of mantle here.
Yeah, so Mezelius style focuses a little bit more on the aim control than the aforementioned, right? So it's like you know the Devious Panda, right? And it's like Down's patterns are in general more aggressive versions, right? So I'd say Mezelius goes less on the rhythm, it's just kind of there, but much harder on the aim control, right? That's definitely what I see when I look at a map like this, for sure. So.
Yeah, and it's definitely just really focuses on these 1/6 bursts into a couple 1/4 after. It's not to the point of being incredibly finger control heavy in terms of those, but otherwise you have to really be ready for all of these 1/6 into 1/4 and 1/4 into 1/6.
Yeah, it is it's tricky in that sense, but overall, play these types of maps, right? They've been pretty common, at least for the past year and a half or so, right? You kind of know what you're getting into, right? Just lots of 1/6, lots of 1/4, lots of 1/4 into 1/6, well, lots of 1/6 into 1/4, and some flow aim to tie that all together.
A little bit of a chill section there and getting back into it here.
Yeah, and at this BPM, I'd say that a lot of people don't get gapped speed-wise, right? So 225, right, is what these 1.6 turn out to be. Not really a deal breaker for most people. Not like some of the later sort of round stuff where, in general, those things tend to go towards like 160 BPM sort of picks, and then it's like you get 240, and it's just like, all right, well, speed is born at 240, right? So.
That slows down a bit there. And don't miss those after the spinner. There's notes after the spinner.
There are notes after the spinner, yeah. Yes, always fun. Okay, and so now we have the Free Mod 3, done by none other than the one and only Captain 1, Daison no Shinzo. So, you know how we were talking about how the, the Hidden 2 would not clash with this? I think you can see why. So.
Yeah, I think this is probably a style that you've seen out of me before. Some of my other low AR ones. This very simple, clear patterning, but on AR8. And it's at a pretty fast BPM if you consider the fact that it's essentially doubled. So it's sitting at about 226 AR8. So I think you mentioned it's like you're playing Band Forever almost.
Yeah, Band Forever, Love Lab 22.8, like, or even On Take Sun from last year, right? It's like it's got that energy, right? But I'd say way less dense than any of those, I'd say. Also, hopefully not Band Forever, because oh my god, that is so much tapping. But well, actually no, I think the Lesja diff probably could parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the Lesja diff was pretty light on tapping.
No, it's because the no guard one is AR7, and then it's like, yeah, okay, all right. What were they thinking, man? What were they thinking?
It's the Wild West back then. Anything goes.
Yeah. I believe it. But anyways, so this is not the Wild West. You can actually hit these patterns. It's just kind of hard, right? So this is quite dense. Like, I can pull up my density chart to see what the exact number of objects on the screen is here, but there's a nice set of breaks between some of these longer chains, and that allows quite a bit of recovery.
Just kind of a big swingy sliders here. Nothing too hard on aim, but you can leave those early and do some slider ends and not have a good time.
Yeah. Also, I just checked my density chart, right? And it's just like, if they are not interrupted by sliders, you can see between 5 and 6 objects on the screen at once. So there are some circles. There are some circles to see on this one.
Yeah, and there's definitely a couple sections with those the circle heavy patterns to really get the density up in some sections.
Yeah, so kind of what makes it a little easy in that sense is that you have some of the curves broken up with slight shifts, right? But the turns themselves are not exactly super frequent, right? So that helps to kind of manage the density. So if you're playing the map, if you played low AR dense maps before, you should be okay. Probably doesn't require expert status, though, I'd say.
Right.
And if you're in hard rock, oh, no problem, right?
Super easy.
Super easy. All right. So now that we've actually now gone through the round of 16 pool, and I think now we are going to chill and sit back as we see the tiebreaker reveal for round of 16.
Warriors of Light.
And that's a wrap, right? So yeah, that tiebreaker. It was another custom song, so we're two for two here. And yeah, that's a banger. Not much to say there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge shout out, not only me for not only mapping it, but also making that storyboard that was also created by Numelia. So she did a, she really went all out on making this the best it could possibly be.
Yeah, so tiebreaker itself, right? It's more of a definite contrast to last week's, right? This one's more focused on, jumps with occasional streams rather than streams with occasional jumps, as the last one sort of felt. But yeah, it should be refreshing. So thank you to the artists, Thomas and Estia, and with NTR Sound here. Check out their SoundCloud and all that fun stuff. We will be linking that everywhere. So, and with that, I think we're pretty much done here with this showcase, right?
I think we are moving into next the matchups previews for the round of 16, and we have the one and only Dio here for those. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I hate to be the guy following up the custom tiebreaker, right? I mean, what a song to follow up. What a ridiculous thing this year for every song to be custom for all of the tiebreakers, right? But somebody's got to do it. So here I am to talk about the matchups for a round of 16. I think there are a few that are actually pretty good. We are past the round of 32 where there were, only a couple of close matchups, a lot of 5-0s, 5-1s in round of 32. I think, particularly in winners bracket, there are going to be a lot of close matchups between some pretty solid teams already, which is a little bit scary if you are one of those higher seeded teams. Thanks again to Half-Slashed and Captain for the map pool showcase, and now hopefully we can get talking about those matchups for round of 16. We're going to be first talking about a matchup that probably is not, unfortunately, for the lower seeded team here. I'm not even going to try to pronounce their name. Probably not going to be quite as interesting as a lot of the other ones. Whispering Almond versus the number 16 seeded team over on the right there. Whispering Almond, the number 1 seed out of qualifiers, I believe top scored all but 1 maps in qualifiers and had a very dominant 5-0 in the round of 32. For those who are wondering what the numbers on screen mean and what the up or down arrows mean, those are comparisons between the qualifiers weekend and the team's performance there versus the round of 32 weekend and the team's performance there. So overall, Whispering Almond, despite having the most dominant showing in qualifiers by a wide margin, still overperforming their qualifier results in round of 32 and actually boosting their stats a bit. Whereas for the lower seeded team, they're not having quite as good of a weekend in the round of 32. And despite making it into the winner's bracket, I feel like this is a pretty unwinnable matchup for them. There are some very good players on that team. Players like Tichi, for example, and Sayo, both really solid tournament players, alongside Weibo, actually. Very solid tournament player as well. But this one, unfortunately, would take a miracle for the upset to happen. I hope it does. It would be very, very fun to see an upset like that happen in round of 16. But I believe this is probably going to be one where you can already expect the outcome to some extent. We'll talk about some of the other matches now. Move on to our next one in winner's bracket. The next one? Well, perhaps not. Talk a little bit more about generally how these matchups went while we hopefully troubleshoot whatever is making it so that we cannot see exactly what's going on there. Ah, there we are. All right, perfect. On to the next matchup. It is Cowabunga versus the Whoopening. This is actually a matchup in loser's bracket. Cowabunga and the Whoopening both unfortunately dropping down, but the Whoopening having a really close matchup in their round of 32 match, had a really solid performance against I believe it was Osu True Skill is the team that they took to Tiebreaker. So seed number 24 taking seed number 9 to Tiebreaker. The Whoopening really not doing very well in qualifiers overall, but having a pretty good showing in round of 32. Whereas for Cowabunga, they had a pretty rough time up against throwing up the seed number 8 team. Cowabunga with Colin, Jacob 3, Cairo, Mejuro McQueen, Fluffy Red Z, Free My Guy Jamal, and Gempio. The Opening with Risoa, Shark, Gerbsy, Tom Kackner, Hanori, Toki, Manivat, and Knots. I think a lot of really solid players for the Whoopening, and I think that that's a matchup where you're generally going to favor them pretty solidly. They have a lot of really good hard rock players. They have a lot of really solid speed and stream players on that team, and they have enough reading and gimmick to not have a bad time on it, particularly with players like Knots and Hanori, and to some extent players like Tom Kackner, Shark, Soa. Whereas for Cowabunga, I think, comparing the stats directly, you can see even when there were areas where Cowabunga did get better, there's almost a counterpart for a lot of them. Speed, stamina, and finger control in particular way in the favor of the Whoopening. And you can still expect the Whoopening to have pretty solid aim and tech performances given their performances in qualifiers. I think, and maybe some first match nerves or first map nerves during their match. So I think this will be a relatively close matchup. You expect that from the seeding, but I do feel like the Whoopening have the overall edge in this one, especially in terms of tournament experience. A lot of really, really solid long-time tournament players on that team. All right, on to our next one. It is Throwing Up versus Osu True Skill. This was the corresponding winner's bracket matchup to the two losers bracket teams that we just saw. Throwing Up with some really interesting players on their lineup, some players coming back for this tournament who haven't been here for quite some time, including Xarius and Tony on their side. They're joined by Vivace, Chocomint, Monka2K, Demi, Decktopia, and GS Blank. Osu True Skill with a decidedly, I think, slept-on roster of players: TFGE, KHZ, Arja, Ryuzaki, Defons, Danet, Dem27, and Ryonata. A lot of players who I think people who don't follow the tournament scene will just completely gloss over, but the people who follow the tournament scene, outside of KHZ, that is, will know pretty well and will understand that they are actually very, very good. Arj, for example, getting top 6 in Yaz's Summer Cup just recently and having pretty solid performances there. they did have a tough time against the Whooping. They got taken to tiebreaker by that team, but the Whooping is a team who had 3 players missing during qualifiers and probably seeded a bit lower than they should have. So to be taken to tiebreaker by that team is not an awful thing. Throwing Up, meanwhile, overperforming their qualifier result and having a really, really solid time in their matchup. Despite the fact that a lot of the players on O's True Skill outside of KHZ are a bit slept on, I think Throwing Up definitely has the overall advantage. You have so much tournament experience on that team. You have a lot of really high skill cap players on that team. You have a lot of really consistent players on that team. And I think, generally looking across the board on just looking at the stats on aim, on tech, on speed, on stamina, on finger control, on precision, and on reading, based on the performances that we've seen so far out of these two teams, if Throwing Up isn't ahead on that stat, it's still close. So it's going to be an uphill battle for O's True Skill. I think there's definitely some areas where they can contest, places like the speed, stamina, and finger control in particular. They have a very good roster for those sorts of picks, and that's what won them the match. It's what's forced the tiebreaker versus the Whooping earlier today. But generally speaking, Throwing Up with a pretty well-deserved on-paper advantage. That's a very tough team to beat. All right, on to the next one. It is The versus Jorgen. The seed number 4 team with a roster that speaks for itself. Listia, MG Hatsune Miku, also known as Arnold, Ruperstian, Intercambing, Nunerik, Eternum, Raikaho, and Ikoro versus Jorgen with Razorfruit, Luciano, Jackson, Suik, Bashiman, Koda, Arco, and Non-Cycle. This is, again, a story of, yes, there are some very good players on Jorgen, and a lot of them are a bit slept on in tournaments, in particular Razorfruit, Luciano, Jackson, Non-Cycle to some extent as well. Arco definitely a bit slept on. If you don't run map pools, you don't really know how good that guy is. But the players on are just next level, and you can see it in the results from the previous 2 weekends, right? Across basically every stat. If it's not close, they're still ahead for and that's to be expected with a roster like this. I had the pleasure of casting their first match in the round of 32 for Team and no matter what map got picked, they still had a very easy time putting 4 players together for it who you could expect in on any team. So a really, really solid overall roster for and I would be surprised if Jorgen can take the match. Definitely going to be an uphill battle for them. We'll see how well they're able to perform, and I think a lot of that kind of will speak to their losers bracket run in the future, because the expectation is for to take this match. This is a top 4 team for good reason. Players on that team are absolutely fantastic, and praying for a late stage run for either of these teams. Honestly, I have a lot of players on both teams who I think you could root for. On to our next matchup of the winners bracket. It's going to be Ramsing versus No Title, a mostly Russian roster with a lot of foreign additions this time around for Ramsing. They've played the Corsace Open a couple times in a row and have had a couple swaps here and there. This year, a big departure from the usual. Gamer 228666, Pier, Red Pixel, Justman, Mistia, Korea Maluko, Cut Paper, and Gonza on that team. In fact, 5 out of 8 players I know for a fact non-Russian. I don't know exactly where Pier is from, but I know Gamer and Red Pixel are both from Russia as well. Versus a pretty much all Korean team in No Title, captained by Adapir with Karcher, Zhong Wuyong, Parisia, Allegrissimo, Spectre, MX10000, and Lujol. Both of these teams are really not to be underestimated. Ramsing Seed 5, I think, had a pretty easy time in the round of 32, had a 5-0 matchup against Greg's cheerleaders, and were able to advance pretty easily into this round of 16. No Title, maybe having to overperform their qualifiers a little bit to get there, but still did it in 5-0 fashion against FC Fakul Voronezh. So neither of these teams really giving up too much in terms of information to the other side, or not really having any trouble for either team advancing. I think just looking at the rosters, you have a lot of really, really solid speed players for Ramsing. In fact, I think maybe too many speed players. You have Gamer, Red Pixel, Mistia, Korea Maluko, and Gonza, all for speed players. So that's a very solid speed roster. They're, I think, is a little bit of a more well-rounded team for no title, but you've seen Korea Maluko in a bunch of other tournaments, both in Corsace last year, in OWC for Team Brazil, in Perennial, in basically any tournament that he plays. He is a ridiculously good all-rounder up to a certain point, and we are absolutely still within the point where he is a good all-rounder. Can play essentially any map. The same goes for Gamer, who recently won, I believe it was Banger Bonanza earlier in this year. So a lot of really solid players on that team, and I think the well-roundedness from that roster will really help them out, because even though you have a lot of players on that team who would typically be thought of as speed players, they're also really good at a lot of other things, and I think that's going to help them a lot, especially with specialists like Cut Paper and Justman to come in and do really well on a lot of the more tricky maps in the round of 16 map pool. As for no title, they do have some really solid all-rounders, Zhang Weiyong, Karcher, and Spectre, respectively. You know, Karcher just recently getting, I believe winning Yaz's Summer Cup, if I'm not mistaken. I was there for that tournament, and I should remember, but it escapes me for the life of me. So again, a lot of really solid all-rounder players for that team, but I think this will be a relatively close matchup. I think no title may be seeding a little bit lower than they could have, but I think overall there are more really solid tournament players on the side of Ramsing. I mean, you can shout out immediately 3 very, very good all-rounders, and you still haven't mentioned Red Pixel or Mistia or Justman. So yeah, that is a very, very strong roster, and I think roster strength matters a lot when you're comparing two teams who are going to be generally close in terms of, you know, their performances from the previous 2 weeks. We'll move on to the next winner's bracket matchup now. It's going to be Goofy Lil Jits versus Fat Pepe Chungus. A matchup for the ages between these two teams, man. I love Osu. Goofy Lil Jits with Fiery Rage, Emrek, White Cat, Reed Cat, Zudinator, Keeg, Triller, and Sawada. This is the number 2 seeded team for a reason. They have no holes in their roster. They have skill cap for days. They have consistency for days. This is the team that is expected, one of maybe 2 teams that is expected to 5-0 their way to the finals, right? Very, very good team. Up against another honestly very good team. You have Gaby, Exarch, Din, Stoof, Will Cookie, Rebo, Emerson, and Yip. And I think, you know, maybe a bit of bad luck in the seeding for Fat Pepe Chungus as they have to go against one of the best teams in the tournament right in round 16. Very likely to find the loss here for them, despite the strength of the roster, just because of the opponent that they're facing. If I were Fat Pepe Chungus, I would just be picking into my strengths. So you have a lot of fairly solid, both reading and kind of speed players. Din Stoof Yip, for example, looks really, really good on DT. But yeah, I think just picking into the strengths for Fat Pepe Chungus is all you can really do in that matchup, because there are no weaknesses to abuse for the winners, the higher seeded team in this matchup. Moving on from the matchup of the ages to more reasonable team names, 14 UTC and Wide People Happy. Actually, a very close matchup between these two teams. 14 UTC with seed number 7 and Wide People Happy seed number 10. Mr. Potato, Delon, Mindfrost, ID, Lights Out, Ayame Lover, That Noob Guy, Maki, and Kalangi for 14 UTC. They had a 5-1 victory over Kookskoken, and there was also a 5-1 victory for Wide People Happy over Need 8th Player. Their roster, Flames Terror, Trez, Decatan, Omega MK, Lucrece, Invoker, Songoku, Poland, and Wispy. I think there's a really solid hidden and reading roster for Wide People Happy. They have a good stream mechanics roster as well, but a lot of players on their team prefer hidden on a lot of maps, so I think you're going to see them lean into that quite a bit, specifically players like Krez, players like Wispy, players like If Memory Serves Decatan, and Mega MK. They do have a lot of really good all-rounders as well, players like Lucrece, Invoker, Son Goku, all go in on the stream maps for that team, so they do still have other places where they can look to take some points. 14 UTC, meanwhile, with I think a pretty well-rounded roster, but definitely a focus on mechanics, and you can see that from the performances that they had in previous weekends, right? Speed, stamina, aim, their best performances over the last 2 weeks, and this is a roster that definitely should lean into that. Players like Mr. Potato, Lights Out, that noob guy in Mindfrost, all really, really good mechanics players. So I think leaning into them and focusing on picking those mechanics picks, especially into a team that might prefer some more reading heavy picks, that might prefer some less straightforward maps, it should be a pretty good idea for 14 UTC. Overall, a really close matchup. I think that one could be won by either team, and I would be hard pressed to make a prediction right now. So definitely one you're going to want to tune in for next weekend. Move on to our 6th matchup in the winners bracket. It is Shale versus Le Petit Pot. I've mostly figured out how to pronounce the French name. Rudo, Colibed, A21, Shield, Demonical, MCY4, Lolo233, and Shiraha Yuki versus the all-French lineup of Charlie, Thunder, Phil Zulama, Flaste, Raspagaius, Brum, Hifkill, and Sukie. This is another one of those matchups where you have a top 4 team who is not expected to lose until maybe semis up against a team who, is in the top 16 by seeding, but just barely. Le Petit Pot had a pretty good matchup against Joshua, seed number 19. It was a 5-2 victory, but they did have a couple of misgivings here and there versus Shale, just with the clean 5-0, no problems whatsoever. And I think you're going to expect them to continue that trend in this matchup. This is, again, a team that is expected to reach the late stages, and I think a team for which, top 6 or, if they didn't make top 6, it would be a disappointment for Shale. So definitely expecting them to win this matchup without too much trouble right now. Let's move on to our last matchup of the winners bracket, and despite the difference in seeding, I think this matchup is going to be very, very good. Sobble versus Chopstick Pros. Sobble made up of Eddie, I'm a Fancy Man, who is actually Ryuke, LeBlue James, Kingling, Woofle, Vesprit, the Pro 365, and Polly versus Chopstick Pros. Seed number 22, but a team, again, who missed a lot of players in qualifiers and then was the only team to secure an upset victory in the round of 32. Captain Venpris with RLSC, Easy Chalk, Rexys, Fuma, Dito, Piper, and Armani Dilbo. A lot of very solid players on this team, players who you would expect to see in the late stages of 4-digit tournaments all over the place here, alongside a couple of mainstays of the Indonesian OWC roster in Rexys, Dito, and Fuma. So this is a team that has a surprising amount of consistency at this lower level in round of 16, and I think will be able to give Sobble a run for their money. Definitely still a Sobble favored matchup overall. You can see from the performances both in qualifiers and in round of 32 that they did have overall a better time despite the 5-0 victory for Chopstick Pros. But I do think that Chopstick Pros has the potential to take points off of Sobble and to potentially force them into a very close match or even win in an upset again if they do get a couple of lucky picks here and there. This is a team that, if Sobble doesn't come prepared to this matchup, they could absolutely lose it. That said, there is still definitely a good reason to favor Sobble. They have a pretty well-rounded lineup, both for speed with Eddie, I'm a Fancy Man, Vesprit, Polly for their speed lineup, and they have a pretty good roster for both Hard Rock and Hidden with the remaining 4, so I wouldn't put it past Sobble to cleanly move through this matchup, but I think this is one where the volatility can be really high, and it will depend a lot on how prepared the teams are and how well they're playing on the day. Could also depend on the timing of the matchup. You have players for Chopstick Pros like Vempris who are on the west coast of the US and players in Indonesia. So this is going to be a matchup where some of their players are going to have to be uncomfortable given the Europeans on the side of Sobble. So this is another interesting one to tune into that has a lot of volatility to it. And with that, we can move into the losers bracket matchups now. Done with all of the winners bracket matches. I believe we covered all of them. It's going to be the Lakers versus Camellia Puku. probably is how you say that name. Lakers seed number 32, just barely squeezing in there with Michael Jordan, Angel Kana, BZE, Lexian, LeBron James, Accelerator, Sevilio, and UC2. Camellia Puku with Temkana, Mr. Future, Voprosov, Robloxa, Markram, Arclight, Snake Q, and Netwine Not. Camellia Puku with a really, really solid overall roster. A lot of very good tournament players on that team. Temkana, Mr. Future, Robloxa, Markram, and Netwine Not come to mind immediately. A couple of good tournament players on the side of the Lakers as well, with UC2 and Angel Kana in particular, but the stats speak for themselves here. You have pretty much across the board better performances so far in the tournament from Camellia Puku, and with such a big difference in seeding, you're generally going to favor seed number 17 in this matchup by a pretty heavy margin. So all right, and on to our next matchup now is Greg versus Camel Jazz. Greg with a lot of well-known tournament players: Saika, Flaro, Saryi, Pogner CZ, also known as Neshpi, Kadak ZZ, Pundais, I Need Top 727, also known as Shiv, Honbei, versus the roster from Camel Jazz, Dahujlo, also known as Magnata Gamer, Sigi, Criterion, Amogus Gaming. I know that's a name change, but I don't remember whose it was. Muxalio, Skilla, One Max, and Grandmaster. Generally speaking, these are two teams who have had a rough time of the round of 32. Greg in particular had a pretty tough matchup right at the start, I believe, going up against in their first matchup. So definitely not a match that they had a really solid time in. And for Camel Jazz, they did manage to take Jorgen to a tiebreaker as seed number 20, which is really solid from them, actually. But not quite able to convert on the tiebreaker. And with the kind of performance that Camel Jazz had, I think you can look to them to continue to abuse the same types of maps that they were picking against Jorgen, likely going for a lot of the speedier picks. I know players like Skilla, like Criterion, like One Max are all really solid on those, and likely going for some of the more tech-focused picks past that as well. They have a lot of really strong both tech and aim players like Sigi, players like Criterion, players like Grandmaster, all really solid on that kind of stuff. So I think picking into that stuff is going to be really solid for them. I think Greg, meanwhile, probably is going to continue to pick into a lot of aim maps. A lot of players on that team really, really solid on aim overall, and that was the strategy for them last week. I think they're just going to continue picking into their strengths, and it would make sense for them to do that. Hopefully, for both of these teams, they're able to prepare well enough and go into it without any trepidations. Let's get into our next losers bracket matchup. After Greg, it's Greg's cheerleaders. Actually, one seed higher than Greg versus FC Fakul Vornes. Greg's cheerleaders with Amakawa Hano, Shineko, Mode, Spev, Tatayama, Ofiz, Akani, and Dine versus Orenberg, Stravezor, Welter, Leffy, Suzuha, Arasami, Handsome Me, and Zentoro. This is again a relatively close matchup. I think FC Fakul Vornes has a slight on paper advantage. You have players like Orenberg, Suzuha, and Handsome Me, who are all really, really solid tournament players as well. Leffy and Welter have been on the up and up as of recent in Russian tournaments. So I think you're going to see pretty solid performances out of FC Fakul Vornes. And it does, again, go back to, they had a really solid time on the speed, the stamina. They had an okay time on aim as well, which is, unfortunately for Greg's cheerleaders, there's not a lot of places where FC Fakul Vornes is going to be vulnerable given the performances that both of these teams have had. Whether it's on the aim or the speed and stamina, they do have a slight edge on paper. So generally, I do favor FC Fakul Vornes, both based off of the tournament players that I recognize on the team as well as the overall performances. That's not to say that this is an impossible matchup. Players like Mode, Tatayama, Spev, Dine, Akani, all really good tournament players. But I think the players for FC Valkevornes have been performing a little better recently and probably have an idea of exactly what they want to pick in this matchup. We'll go on to the next match. Move a little quickly through our last 4 matches. Now we've got OWC Portugal versus Okaip CTM. This is a matchup that is probably going to go very well for Okaip CTM. On OWC Portugal, you have Akano Ririan? You have their captain with Vicente, Gurasimp, Antonio, and Harmonia, Marty, and Michael versus Chalk Gamer, Gaston GL, Suntan, Dai, Counter-Strike, BTG4, Batball, and Carlos Flo. A lot of really good tournament players on Okaip, actually. You wouldn't know this just by looking at the team for a lot of players, but players like Gaston, like Chalk Gamer, like Suntan, Dai, Counter-Strike, BTG, Carlos Flo in particular, all really, really good rank restricted tournament players. So I definitely like the odds for Okaip here. And the on-paper stats agree with me on this one across the board. You can see not a one area where OWC Portugal has a winning on-paper statistic. So definitely favoring even a 5-0 or 5-1 for Okaip here, and looking to see them advance into the next round of losers bracket. For OWC Portugal, I think if there's any place where they could look to take some points, it's on the aim, it's on the precision, play off the nerves from Okaip. A lot of the players on their team as well. You know, there are some good hard rock players like Dai, for example, but I think that in general their roster favors more of the speed, more the hidden. So definitely a place where they could look to take some points is that aim and precision. But again, still generally favoring Okaip. Let's go on to our third to last matchup. It's an actually very close matchup on paper. Kookskoken versus Need 8th player, seed number 26 versus 23. Le FX, Willie, Lukey, Thompson, Vomit Throat, Dion, and Mark Napkin versus Yolkspy, Plasma, Lolo235, Lolo234, Freeze and Gemsy, and Melver and Amacetic. I recognize a lot more of the players on Need 8th players team, but the results from the last 2 weeks actually look very good for Kookskoken. The pretty much all German roster here. They had an okay time in their matchup, if I remember right, in the round of 32. They were against 14 UTC, and while it wasn't a super close matchup, they still were able to put up some good scores. Have generally a good time on the stamina, on the speed, and on aim. Very mechanics-focused team. Much the opposite, actually, of Need 8th player, who is a team that is really, really good at gimmick, at finger control, and at reading. Not necessarily an aim team, though they can play it, especially with Plasma, Lolo234, and 235 on their team. I think this is a very decided matchup already, where you're going to have Kookskoken picking into a lot of the mechanics picks, and Need 8 player picking into a lot of the more gimmicky picks in the map pool. Definitely one, again, to tune into. Probably a pretty close matchup, given the way the teams have specialized in this one. And especially with the tiebreaker being what it is, I think you could even potentially see an upset in this matchup if the cards fall the right way for Kookskoken. Let's go on to our second to last matchup. It is Genetics Abused versus Joshua. Genetics Abused with Yoshi Lover 456, Aaron, Wukio, Rhythm Game, Ampy, C-Main, Zeph, and OneCert versus Joshua's Dash Semi, Tim Kackner, 8th, Yuri Night Larry, Painted Koala, Shaney, Jinxen2, and Frodo55. Genetics Abused, despite their team name actually doing just fine on stamina and speed from the previous couple of weeks, and actually putting up very close on paper statistics against seed number 19. Genetics Abused have a lot of really solid tournament players on their team, and I think when you are still in an early stage like round of 16, that does give them a bit of an inroad to taking some points and potentially taking an upset win over a team like Joshua, who is a lot higher seeded than they are, given the tournament experience that you have on, for example, their captain Yoshi Lover, who has played I don't know how many tournaments over the last 3 or 4 years, captaining tons of teams, and on players like Zeph, who gets offline 600s and is way better than you would first expect. So there are some very good players on the side of Genetics Abused, and I think that Joshua will need to watch out for them. Yoshi Lover perhaps not playing the stamina and speed maps, but will be able to I think pick very well for the team, and when he is needed on the reading maps, perform very well. That said, Joshua, not seed 19 for nothing. They had a very solid matchup in the round of 32 against Le Petit Pot, and I think that they'll still be able to convert pretty well on their own picks, especially given that a lot of Joshua's picks in their round of 32 matchup were aim maps overall, something that Genetics have used honestly doesn't have a ton of in terms of their roster. So another matchup where there are very different skill sets going on between these two teams. And now we're finally on to our last matchup of the round of 16. It is Danid 4 Ghetto Patrol versus Kukizia Sekolte. Seed number 11 getting knocked out by Chopstick Pros. Again, Chopstick Pros, a very scary roster, knocking out Yunha Penguinzi, Texaki, LP, Jackpax, Kama, Marcus, and 5 Yoshi. They're up against Danid 4 Ghetto Patrol, Tobisawa Misaki, Smarty, Softor, iFakers, Hexashu, Garabik, Ahoff, and Lunar. Still really solid scores, though, across the board for Kukizia Sekolte. I think performing pretty well, despite the fact that they got 5-0'd, just because Chopstick Pros was that good of a team. So you're generally going to favor this team with a lot of really solid tournament players on it and a lot of really solid experience to them over even a team with Smarty on it, despite Smarty being one of the best German tournament players that there is. I think this is a matchup that definitely heavily favored the higher seeded team in Kukizia Sekote. And that is it. We have talked about all of the matchups. Make sure to tune in next weekend. Schedules will be released. You can find them on the website if you want to see where the schedules are. And that is all we have for this weekend. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Go watch the Tiebreaker song that has been posted in the server and on our Twitter as well. Thanks from everybody at Corsace. We'll see you next weekend.